social media is one of the most divisive topics. People love it, people hate it, and their relationship changes with it over time. And today we're going to be dissecting that. And how do you relate to social as a person versus as a business owner? And what does that mean to your business? And this is ultimately a confessional because I have a very complicated relationship with social media and specifically Instagram. And so while today's episode can be relevant for most social channels, today I'm going to be talking about kind of what I think about Instagram and how I think businesses have been showing up there and how I think it might be easier or at least feel more approachable and more fun to show up there in the future. Welcome to Confessions of a Spiritual Entrepreneur. I'm Samantha Fackler, your host, business mentor, brand strategist, and someone who believes that building a business is one of the most spiritual journeys you can take. I am here to help you grow your business through proven strategies and aligned practices, so ultimately you can make more money while being in a state of ease. Now, why me? I have worked with over 100 companies and almost 14 years in the brand and marketing space. I've worked with brands that you, your mom, and your grandma know, but I am also spiritual. I love astrology, I keep crystals in my desk, and I'm a Reiki master. So I bring an extra little flavor to this conversation. Let's get into it. So this is kind of going to be like a journal style where when I think about Instagram, I like to first think about how did my relationship with Instagram start? And Instagram started in 2010 and it started to pick up speed around 2012, 2014. When it was introduced in 2010, I remember I started using it, I think a year after it launched, and it was just a photo sharing app. It was pretty no frills. It was very clean and simple, and I really enjoyed it. I would share photos of my life, and I knew that it was going to a small group of friends, and I knew everyone on that list. It was also really refreshing and simple because at the time, Facebook and before Facebook, MySpace were kind of the social media places that you showed up on. It was really simple, and because it was simple, it was really easy. And because it was easy, it was really fun. But then things started to change, and 2012, 2014, more influencers started showing up, and influencer culture began to be a thing. And what's really interesting is that if you actually look at Coachella as an example, Coachella before 2013, 2014, there were no influencers there. If you go back and look at photos of people that attended, people wore much more normal clothes, like everyday clothes. It was less populated. There was a fraction of the people that there are today. It was a totally different vibe. After 2014, influencer central. You go to Coachella now and it's like you need your outfits, photos, there are backdrops, there are brands showing up there doing activations. It's 180 from what it was before. And that is because of things like Instagram and social media. Now, I am not saying that that's a bad thing or a good thing. I'm just talking about the differences in that alone because of things like Instagram. Now, me personally, I found that around this time, I was still using it for fun personally, but over the years, I started to use it less and less because I felt like it was a place that people were either trying to become influencers or, trying to grow a presence. And I wasn't trying to do that. And so because of that dissonance, I was like, I don't know. I want to show up less. I feel like that's the cool girl thing to do. And I want to be a cool girl. Now, of course, the people that did show up around this time exploded. So people that we know now that have followings of 500,000 or 1 million people, it's because they were showing up then. Now, of course, there are people with huge followings that showed up later and were able to capitalize. But I'm just saying there are a lot of people that we follow today that we view as these gurus or experts simply because they were showing up here really early. Any social media platform that first starts, if you're one of the early people to be active there, then you're going to grow an audience way faster. And that might not have anything to do with your expertise or how good you are at something. So I wanted to mention that. Now, I don't want to hate on social media because also what I found over the years is that I kind of went through phases where I would post a lot or there'd be a new feature like carousels. And I was like, ooh, wow, now I can post all my travel photos in one. But occasionally I would feel like, you know what, I need a break from social media. I don't want to be on it all the time. I don't want to be scrolling a lot. I feel like I buy more things and it just like skews my preferences as a human just by being active on it. So I would kind of do little tests with myself where I would go a month without social media. Now, this is all pre-becoming a business owner, right? When I did these little detoxes, what I found was that was I more clear-headed and present in my life? Yes. Did my attention go to other things? Yes. I would start consuming YouTube videos or I would start to scroll astrology horoscopes more. Yeah, so there's a lot in there. But one of the things that I didn't expect when I did take a social media break is that I felt more disconnected to my friends and people and networks that were on there. I felt disconnected to the larger news and events and narratives that were going on. I remember it was October of 2019 and I took a break, and I remember I was also traveling and I challenged myself not to post my travel photos until after. And I didn't realize that like certain people of my friends had started dating each other and different news events happened. I remember when Kobe Bryant passed away, I'd completely missed that. And then I would run into people and they'd be like, oh my gosh, did you hear about Kobe? I'd have no idea, you know? And I felt like I was a little outside of the world. And that we could dissect the livelong day. Whether that's good or bad for us, we don't know. But being disconnected had some consequences. Yeah. Like when it came to chatting with people, like I didn't know what Netflix shows people were like raging over and talking about. And I remember going to a party once and I was like, ooh, what do I talk about with people? I'm reading these books, I'm doing these things, but I felt like people were talking about all these topics that I just didn't know of. And I didn't like that feeling. Now, fast forward to today, I have a business. And when I started showing up on Instagram, I still wasn't super active on my personal profile. I used it more to consume and see what people were up to rather than posting things. And I sure as hell did not post any reels of my personal life ever. I remember I actually hired a coach when I started to post on Instagram because I was like, I don't know what I'm doing here as a business owner. I don't know how to use this channel with my own. I've designed strategies and things for companies, but it's very different if you're showing up with personal brand and you offer services. And that coach gave me some interesting advice. She was like, just post, get out of your perfectionism. You know, you don't need a strategy right away. Just see what works, throw spaghetti at the wall. And I think some of that was really valuable for me because I was/am a perfectionist in a lot of ways. I wouldn't say 100% perfectionist. I'm a type B gal at the end of the day, but I learned a lot by just showing up. And then I've had so many different phases with Instagram as a business owner over the years. But my relationship with Instagram changed when I started showing up as a business owner because suddenly I had to be on and I had to be looking at what content's performing, what do people enjoy consuming here now? Because again, it's a completely different platform today than it was when Instagram first started 15 years ago. And that meant it required more hours of my time to be on social media, to be consuming, to be posting, to be constantly learning what my audience liked, building that audience, engaging. But holy crap, did it take over my life at the beginning. And I didn't like that. And I kept running into these walls and I would have this conversation with different people of, look, I don't want to show up on social and yet I need to for my business. So how the fuck do I do this? And it's been really hard to figure out because especially being on there and being a business coach for women, ultimately guiding them through all sorts of things, whether it's branded marketing, inner growth, leadership, I am exposed to a lot of other people that post things like me. And so then competition fears come up, self-doubt comes up. The comparison trap is huge on Instagram, especially if you're a business owner. You start to think, well, everyone's posting lip sync videos. Do I need to do that? And that's something that I think, over my dead body, will I post a lip sync video? But also, who knows? If you see that from me one day, you can call me out. But ultimately, all of this consumption on Instagram influenced what I was putting out as a business owner. And it made me consume even more information. And then I noticed it started to influence me as a person too. For example, today I saw that a work friend in my network was in Paris for Paris Fashion Week, which is a dream. Amazing. And her content looked beautiful. I go on with my day. I have meetings. I, do all this stuff. And then I find myself in the afternoon about to text my friend being like, we need to go to Paris. Then I paused myself and I was like, actually, do I really want to go to Paris? Is that something that's in my brain because I just saw it and it looked beautiful and fun and I saw someone's highlight reel? And I thought, I actually have spent time in Paris. Like, I had a very brief stint where I lived and worked in a bookstore in Paris. I know Paris intimately. I have a fat map of Paris in my office. Do I actually want to go there? And if I do, like, when would that happen? What would that look like? And I stopped myself because I was like, actually, I don't want to go to Paris right now. It's the winter. It's cold. And I would rather go when I can be outside in a dress and like a beautiful outfit that is kind of springy. I don't see myself going there like in the next couple months. And what I'm trying to get to here is that because of what we consume on there, even if it's just reels and if it's for fun and we're looking at what brands are showing, it does ultimately influence our decisions, whether our decisions as a consumer, as a traveler, as a human. And I think as someone also who is looking at growing her business more, growing intentionally, someone who really values like being connected to your intuition and growing your own way, I realized that there was something that was at odds here. Right? How do I stay deeply connected to myself and not be swayed by social media? And yet, how do I also show up on social media to reach more women with my business? Because my business is also something I'm incredibly passionate about, brings such fulfillment to me when I do meet these women on Instagram and they do find me there and start to work with me. They step into my community. They end up listening to the podcast. And then I get these beautiful messages of, oh my gosh, that was so amazing. Or this really helped me rethink this. And this changed my relationship to that. And that's why it's worth it. And so when I remember those things, then I think, well, yeah, of course I want to show up there. So without bringing you into an entire little mind corkscrew here, we do feel pressures as a business person to show up on certain channels for marketing. Does it mean that you have to? No. Does it mean that you have to do it in a certain way and do what everyone else is doing? No. But can you show up there and stay authentic to yourself and share what feels real and treat it as a platform that you still have fun with and enjoy and get something out of that where there's ROI for your business? Yeah, I think you can do that. And I think that's something that's really hard that I'm actively trying to figure out. Like, I don't have a perfect blueprint or takeaways for you, but I can share with you how I'm approaching it and what I plan to do as I kind of recalibrate my relationship with Instagram. Whenever I think about the actions that I take in my business, I think about what's the point? Why am I doing this? What is the greater goal and strategy here? When I think about what's important to me, it's meeting more women whose lives I can impact with my skills and talents and gifts, right? My coaching, the spaces I create, the programs that I run. The transformation that has for women is what's most important to me. When I think about marketing channels, they are all different. Every single social media channel, marketing channel has its own pros and cons. And I think a lot of channels have the same things that we've been talking about today. You go on YouTube a bunch, you bet that YouTube is going to affect the way that you think about things. You go on LinkedIn a lot. LinkedIn is feeling a little weird recently because the algorithm has been kind of trash. But do the things that I read on there influence the way I think about certain things? A little bit, yeah. Do I still have strong boundaries with these channels? Also, yes, because I don't want to take it all in and just be at the whim of whatever is going on in the echo chamber. So when it comes to recalibrating, some different questions that I've asked myself are, what pressures do I feel as a business owner when it comes to showing up or selling there? And I think this has been really hard to navigate because so many people are like, you need to sell on Instagram. You can't just be posting about your life. You need to be like pushing things. But then when you start to push things a lot, people are like, oh, all she does is sell. So it's been a very interesting dance to feel these pressures and narratives of what you should be doing on social media and then saying, screw off, like I'm going to do what's best for me. So then I kind of practice that I'm actually physically pushing all of that noise away from me. For me, doing like somatic work really helps. So like I just imagine I literally use my hands and pretend I'm pushing it away and I feel more space. In that space, I think, how do I actually want to show up there as a business owner? And for me, I actually want to share more of like fun stuff, like my life and behind the scenes. And yeah, I don't want it to be all business every day. Let me like hammer value into your brains through this screen. I want to have more fun. So I think if you do follow me on Instagram, you're going to see a little bit more content coming out. I think you're going to see a little bit more of my personality. And then I think also sharing more social proof. I think that's something, it's like I get these amazing messages and shares in my business and community, and they don't always make it to Instagram because there's a lot of it. So I want to get better about that. And I think that will actually do more selling than a bunch of carousels that I'll talk about and offer. So I want to reduce the amount of selling I do there, increase the amount of fun, and like kind of get a little bit looser with it. I know that certain brands are like, everything has to be branded, but I think Instagram is a place where I'm going to play with a bit more like flexibility and see, yeah, what just happens if I loosen up there. Another thing too is how do I separate consuming versus creating so that the creation process feels like creative and just really fun, almost like I'm creating it for a group of friends. Connecting it back to the early days of Instagram. It's like I actually want to bring back that energy and treat that as this platform. I'm not creating Instagram content, because I'm trying to go viral and hit 1 million followers. I don't even know if I want 1 million followers. Do I want 100,000? Sure, that's great. But I'm not trying to be, again, an influencer, but I am trying to have influence. And so that line is one that I'm dancing on. Other questions I'm thinking about is like, how do I define ROI with Instagram? And how much time is this going to take, right? And how do I reduce the time, have more fun with it, outsource key pieces to my team, and then reevaluate my marketing strategy? What is actually going to be my priority channel that I dedicate resources to that's going to have more ROI? I think in general that my podcast has probably had the highest ROI across my channels. It's brought the most people in, and it's been a place where if people discover me outside of the podcast, they typically listen to the podcast to validate that they want to work with me. So I'm kind of doubling down on what works and treating Instagram a little bit more like a playground rather than a priority place that my business shows up. And who knows, I'll share my confessions again, if that ends up working really well or if it doesn't. But I want Instagram to go from something that feels like life support right now to something that feels like it actually injects joy into my life. But that means I'm also going to set harder boundaries with what I consume. I am unfollowing a lot of people that do what I do because I don't want to see what they're putting out, because I don't want to feel that comparison or competition. I want to share stuff that feels real to me. And if I start to see what people are sharing when they do something similar to me, I'm going to subconsciously think, I need to do that too. And I don't want to be thinking of that and not realizing I'm thinking of that. So that is a big thing I'm going to be doing too, which I'm honestly pretty excited about. It feels really good in my body. And then I think even in my personal Instagram, it's like I barely go on there. I go, I see what my friends are doing, I check out. And I think that's what I'll do with my business too, is just give myself a really small window so that I kind of know what's relevant and I stay connected and that piece is there. But I'm not scrolling for hours. I'm not scrolling reels for 2 hours a day. So I think some reminders for you all, if you've made it to the end of this episode, is you're not crazy if you feel like your relationship with a social media platform is changing. Social media platforms will continue to change and evolve. All of them. None of them are going to stay the same. Just be mindful of what you're consuming on these channels, who you're following, what they're sharing, because that will influence your desires, whether you realize it or not. It takes self-awareness to realize, oh, I'm reaching for this product because I've seen an ad for it 7 times. Or I trust this person because I've seen them talk 18 times in the last week, when actually that person doesn't have expertise or might not be sharing the most accurate information. 3 is you can redefine ROI whenever. If you've prioritized a channel and it's not working for you, guess what? You can change. You do not have to prioritize that thing. I think 4, you don't have to show up on social media if you don't want to for your business. There are so many channels, and I will do a future episode about this, of like, how do you grow your business without social? I've decided to continue to show up on Instagram because it is fun at the end of the day. And I want to bring back that enjoyment I felt with the platform originally. And then 5, create from presence, not pressure, right? So check in with yourself when you're creating and think, okay, am I doing this for me and the people I really want to reach? Or am I doing this because I feel like I'm supposed to be doing it in this way? And I think that will help people, hopefully, create more original content that feels like them. What do you know? It's probably going to lead to more engagement. So that is my confession on my complicated relationship with Instagram and takeaways for you as business owners and how you might either continue to grow with it or without it. So with that, thank you for being here. My name is Samantha Fackler. You can catch me on Instagram at samantha.fackler, and I will catch you next time.